Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Cynthia Arthur. You're watching News at 10. Malaysia, Indonesia and Brunei will be issuing joint statements to strongly condemn Israel's oppressive attacks on Palestinians. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said the cruel and despicable actions of the Israeli army against Palestinians should be strongly condemned by the whole world. With that, he said Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta and Bandar Seri Begawan will urge the United Nations Security Council to act promptly to end Israeli violence and save Palestinian lives. The Premier said he has discussed the issue with Indonesian President Joko Widodo, and both of them agreed that the violent acts akin to war crimes done by the Zionist regime must be put to a stop.
Dalam perbincangan tersebut, Presiden Joko Widodo dan saya bersetuju bahawa tindakan ganas rejim Israel harus dihentikan serta-merta. Kami juga berkongsi pandangan yang sama supaya komuniti antarabangsa, terutamanya Majlis Keselamatan PBB, bertindak segera bagi menghentikan keganasan rejim Israel dan menyelamatkan nyawa rakyat Palestin. Dalam hal ini, Malaysia akan menerajui bersama-sama dengan Indonesia dan Brunei untuk mengeluarkan satu kenyataan bersama bagi mengutuk sekeras-kerasnya serangan zalim rejim Israel ke atas Palestin ini.
Speaking in a special message today, Tan Sri Muhyiddin also expressed his regret and disappointment by the inability of the international community, especially the UN Security Council, to immediately halt Israel's escalation of violence against the Palestinians. To date, the UN Security Council has not issued any statement on the current situation in Palestine due to opposition from the United States of America. Nevertheless, the Prime Minister said Malaysia will continue with its efforts in urging the international community, especially the UN Security Council, to act swiftly in compelling Israel to stop its attacks on the Palestinians. In a related development, the Premier said Israel's escalation of violence and widespread bombardment on Palestine is a violation of international law, human rights law, international humanitarian law, the Charter of the United Nations UN, and is a war crime under the Geneva Convention. As such, in show of undivided support and solidarity for Palestine, Tan Sri Muhyiddin said Malaysians must stand firm together in voicing out stance on Israel's inhumane actions against the Palestinians.
Saya percaya rakyat Malaysia yang cintakan keamanan berpegang teguh kepada pendirian bahawa tiada alasan kukuh bagi penggunaan kekerasan yang dilakukan secara tidak seimbang, sembarangan dan melampau ke atas Palestin dan menolak sekeras-kerasnya tindakan keji rejim Israel ke atas rakyat Palestin.
Meanwhile, Malaysia will continue to make bilateral contributions towards Palestine in addition to making contributions to other international bodies to help its people who have been oppressed by the Israeli regime. Tan Sri Muhyiddin reiterated Malaysia's principled stance, which has always consistently given strong support to Palestine and its struggles of its people, whether in terms of politics, economy and moral.
Melalui akaun Amanah Kemanusiaan Rakyat Palestin AAKRP selian Kementerian Luar Negeri, Malaysia telah menyumbang sebanyak $10,000 kepada Masjid Al-Aqsa pada tahun 2020. Sumbangan tersebut telah disalurkan kepada Kementerian Awqaf Jordan. Di tahun 2020, Malaysia telah menyumbang sebanyak $120,000 kepada United Nations Relief and Works Agency in the Near East, UNRWA, bagi menampung kos operasi dan programnya bagi tahun 2020.
The Premier explains that Malaysia has been consistently providing strong support and contributions to the UNRWA since 1978, adding that $600,000 were contributed since 2015. He said Malaysia has also helped Palestine contain the spread of COVID-19 by supplying various medical appliances, including 1 million face masks, 500,000 face shields, and 500,000 rubber gloves. Malaysia will call for the Organisation for Islamic Cooperation, OIC, to take tougher stand and maximum possible efforts to protect Palestinians from Israel's hostile acts during the OIC virtual extraordinary meeting tomorrow. Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Hishamuddin Tun Hussein, who will be representing the country to the meeting, said Malaysia will continue to stand in strong solidarity with the people of Palestine in wake of Israeli aggression. The virtual open-ended extraordinary meeting of the OIC Executive Committee at the level of the foreign ministers is called to discuss the aggression by Israel, the occupying power in the Palestinian territories, particularly in Al-Quds Al-Sharif. On another development, Datuk Seri Hishamuddin said he had been in constant communication with Brunei's Foreign Affairs Minister to Datuk Seri Setia Haji Eriwan Muhammad Yusof and Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi to reach a consensus amongst Southeast Asia's Muslim countries regarding Palestine. He said collectively everyone strongly condemned the Israeli attacks against Palestinians and called for Israel to immediately stop its aggression across the occupied Palestinian territory. We will have more updates on the Palestinian issue in the foreign segment. Now, prospective vaccine recipients with the status of person under investigation PUI, person under surveillance PUS, or close contacts of COVID-19 patients are not allowed to turn up at vaccination centres PPVS. National COVID-19 Immunisation Programme Coordinating Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said that thus far they had found that several individuals with such status were present at PPVs when they should have been at home under quarantine. Khairi said that the vaccination exercise for individuals with such status will be rescheduled because they are at risk of infecting others. Apart from that, he said that those who did not have an appointment at MySejahtera also should not come to PPVs to try their luck to get the vaccine, as it could cause congestion and compromise physical distancing. Meanwhile, he said that more opt-in registration for AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines will be opened for residents in the Klang Valley and several other states, and an announcement on the matter would be made next week. On the 2nd of May, the government opened opt-in booking for the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines for eligible individuals aged 18 and above, and the vaccination exercise began on the 5th of May. In order to stem COVID-19 cases, vessels from India docking in all Malaysian ports are not allowed to sign off their crew of any nationality into Malaysia during the nationwide movement control order from May 12th to June 7th, said Transport Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Wee Ka Siong. He said exceptions are made only for Malaysian citizens who need to be quarantined for 14 days in a government-designated station under strict procedures as decided by the Health Ministry MOH. He said the ministry acknowledges public concerns with regard to standard operating procedures SOP governing shipping activities and port activities. Elaborating further on the matter, Datuk Seri Wee said that on the 26th of April, he chaired a video conference with the Marine Department of Malaysia JLM and various port authorities under the ministry's purview to relay the National Security Council's MKN strategies to prevent COVID-19 variants originating from India from entering Malaysia, which were enforced from the 28th of April. He said SOPs directed by MOH and MKN to prevent COVID-19 transmission that govern shipping activities at ports nationwide are also in place. Among the directives are vessels with COVID-19 symptoms detected on board, as determined by MOH through the Maritime Declaration of Health, must undergo a 14-day quarantine. The minister noted that all dock workers must also use MOH-approved personal protective equipment PPE, such as face masks and disposable latex gloves when working on vessels. Datuk Sri Wee added that the ministry continues to strictly enforce the COVID-19 prevention SOP and will continue to abide by MKN and MOH's decision to impose stricter restrictions and enhance the SOP from time to time should the need arise. A private sector employee was issued a 2,000 ringgit compound for hosting a Hari Raya open house in Tanjung Maling, Perak yesterday. Perak Police Chief Dato' Mir Farid Alatrash Wahid said police went to the location at about 5:45 p.m. after receiving several complaints on the matter. The Chief Police said by the time police arrived, the guests have left and only a 31-year-old man was home, and he admitted he had earlier held an open house. As such, Dato' Mir Farid Alatrash urged the people not to hold open houses or visit one another during the Movement Control Order MCO, more so after the state was reported to have the highest COVID-19 infectivity rate yesterday.
So saya bagi nasihatlah kepada semua, janganlah mengadakan rumah terbuka, janganlah buat pengunjung. Pasal apa? Pasal saya kata tadi kadar jangkitan di Perak ni tinggi, so stop lah. So kita ni bukanlah kejam sangat nak pergi cek rumah-rumah dah. Kita takkan cek rumah-rumah. Tapi kalau ada komplain, kita terpaksa tindakan.
He was met after checking on a roadblock at the Ipoh Utara Toll Plaza. Since the implementation of the MCO until yesterday, a total of 116 compound notices have been issued for MCO SOP violations, but statewide, the compliance rate so far is 96%, while 41 compound notices have been issued for unauthorized interstate travel. Malaysia has reported 44 COVID-19 deaths today, the highest on record for the country. This is the third time in 7 days that fatalities have hit record highs. The previous records were 39 deaths on the 12th of May and 26 deaths on 9th of May. In a statement today, the Health Director General, Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah, said the total number of infections now stand at 466,329 after another 4,140 cases were reported in the past 24 hours. Selangor recorded the highest number of cases with 1,507. He said there were 3,432 recoveries, bringing the total number of those discharged to 422,329. There are 42,135 active cases, with 482 patients being treated in ICUs and 250 requiring respiratory assistance. The list of candidates for the Anak Muda Advisory Group to Prime Minister is being finalised, and those selected will be announced soon. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said the initiative proposed by the Malaysian Youth Council was proof of the government's commitment in ensuring the voices of youth were clearly heard.
Dan ini adalah inisiatif yang baik supaya suara generasi belia di peringkat akar umbi dapat didengari dan seterusnya menyumbang kepada perancangan dasar kerajaan. Melalui platform ini, saya berharap lebih ramai belia dapat terlibat secara langsung dalam rangka strategi pembangunan negara yang menyeluruh.
In his National Youth Day 2021 address today, the Premier said focus was also given to the element of social responsibility in youth development through volunteerism. For example, youth participation as MyVac and Rakan Muda Sports Bubble volunteers. As of 3rd of May, a total of 10,500 people have registered as MyVac volunteers, while 5,360 people have registered as Rakan Muda Sports Bubble volunteers. Of those numbers, 80% of the volunteers are between the ages of 15 and 40. The National Youth Day is celebrated on 15th of May every year, with this year's celebration being held on a moderate scale by retaining last year's theme of this decade, Your Decade. Meanwhile, the worries and concerns of youths affected by COVID-19 pandemic will be addressed as best as possible. Youth and Sports Minister Dato Sri Rizal Merican Naina Merican said the government had undertaken various initiatives, including the National Employment Council, Employment Generation Guarantee Scheme, Jana Kerja, National Apprenticeship Scheme, E-Youth Program and Bantuan Prihatin Rakyat, as well as empowering the technical, vocational education and training TVET to help them face today's challenges. Despite facing COVID-19, Dato Sri Rizal Merican said many youths in the country had recorded extraordinary success and potential. It included youths who sacrificed their time, energy and lives for the country as frontliners. Still ahead, two main contenders for Iranian president's registered candidacy for election. Israel's bombardment of the Gaza Strip entered its sixth consecutive day, with Israeli air raids hitting a refugee camp where at least 10 Palestinians, including 8 children, were killed. In the early hours of Saturday, rescue workers were still trying to pull bodies from under the rubble as more people are believed to be dead, while Hamas freedom fighters responded to the latest attack by firing a barrage of rockets towards the southern Israeli towns of Ashkelon and Ashdod. There was no casualties reported. At least 139 Palestinians, including 39 children, have been killed in the Gaza Strip since Monday, while some 950 others have been wounded. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces have killed at least 13 Palestinians, protesting against continued Israeli occupation and the ongoing bombardment of Gaza. Confrontations between Israeli police and Palestinian demonstrators continued into the night in occupied East Jerusalem. As violence escalates, the humanitarian crisis grows steadily worse, with thousands of Palestinian families taking shelter in United Nations-run schools in northern Gaza to escape Israeli artillery fire. The United Nations has said it estimates approximately 10,000 Palestinians have left their homes in Gaza amid the Israeli offensive. Palestinians were set today to mark 73 years since the ethnic cleansing of their homeland by Zionist militias to create the State of Israel. Meanwhile, Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has strongly urged the United Nations to act against the violence currently happening in Gaza. Erdogan also calls for Russian President Vladimir Putin to give a stern warning to the Israeli regime. This protest was followed with a demonstration by the Turkish citizens in Ankara, who took it to the streets to object the attack on the Palestinians. They said this is the worst attack on Gaza made since 7 years ago. Over in Australia, several thousand people marched protesting against Israeli attacks on Gaza amid days of conflicts between the two sides. The protesters gathered at Town Hall in Sydney and at their State Library of Victoria in Melbourne before marching to Parliament House, chanting slogans as they threw their support for the indigenous Palestinians. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, supporters of Jamaat-e-Islami political party went to the streets of Karachi to express unwavering solidarity with Palestinians as they braced relentless attacks from Israel and demanding an end to the suffering. Protests were also held in several cities, including Lahore and Multan, where Israeli atrocities against Palestinians were strongly condemned. The protesters also demanded the international community take notice of Israel's mobbing of Palestinians' land and its people. The death of national archer Haji Kamaruddin yesterday is because of complications arising from clogged heart blood vessels due to coronary artery atherosclerosis. Health Ministry's Forensic Medical Services head, Dr. Zahari Noor, said so far there was no evidence to show that the 27-year-old Olympian's death was linked to COVID-19 vaccination. In a statement today, the senior forensics medicine consultant said the post-mortem was completed after a COVID-19 test was tested negative for the virus. The autopsy results showed death due to complications arising from clogged heart blood vessels due to atherosclerosis. However, he said further investigations were underway and also some laboratory analysis results pending. Haziq, who had represented the country at the 2012 London and 2016 Rio Olympics, was reported to have collapsed at his home at about 8 a.m. yesterday. He was rushed to Kajang Hospital before pronounced dead at 9:37 a.m. Haziq was among the over 200 athletes and officials making preparations for the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games in Tokyo, complete with the taking of the second dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for COVID-19 on the 4th of May. In a decade of representing the country, Haziq won the gold medal at the 2011 Asian Grand Prix in Laos and the bronze at the 2019 Asia Cup in the Philippines, besides winning 4 golds and 2 silvers in the individual and team events at the SEA Games editions from 2011 to 2019. Meanwhile, Haziq's father, Kamaruddin Yusof, said the last time he ever saw his son was through a video call on 1st Shawwal.
Raya pertama tu dia ada buat video call lah. Dia macam dia pun macam sihat, tak ada apa. Saya pun tak sangka lah sebenarnya boleh jadi macam ni. Jadi tiba-tiba dia kan boleh jadi macam tu. Dia cerita semua baik lah, semua bagus kata. Semua kesihatan pun bagus. Dia tak ada cerita hal lain. Cuma dia seronok je lah. Dia kata dia sihat, dia apa semua tu je.
Kamaruddin was met after the funeral at Taman Koperasi Serkam Darat Muslim Cemetery in Merlimau earlier today. He added that Haziq, who was the second from the 3 siblings, was also excited to talk about his training and preparations for the Tokyo Olympics 2020. Kamaruddin said the family had accepted his son's death as fated. Malaysia disappointed with UN, wants firm action on Israel's aggression. Join us for updates at noon at 12:30 tomorrow. I'm Cynthia Arthur. Thank you for watching.